Thank you very much, Claudette, for joining our program this week.
It's my pleasure to be here, Leah. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Would you perhaps identify some highlights of what's gone on in the last week or so?
My goodness, that's a big question, isn't it? So much has been going on in this country. So much. I'm smiling, but deep down it saddens me. That's seeing Malta in this state, seeing our people in this state. People are sad, they're angry, they are disappointed, there's a sense of disillusion. Somebody once promised Malta, this magical place where, everything is going to be perfect, and, those people who were on the brink of poverty, they're going to rise up. There's going to be the creation of this new middle class, and that dream, slowly but surely, is withering away. And with it, I sadly say that people's hopes are withering away. We are seeing a lot of young people deciding to leave Malta, leaving Malta, young couples with their children, students who have opportunities to go and study abroad. This is what the European Union gave us as an opportunity. And some of them are not very keen about coming back, because going abroad to study is a good thing. It's coming back, which is very, very important. But sadly, I'm meeting too often people who tell me stories which are quite shocking. Recently, a friend of mine called me. Her daughter is more or less my daughter's age, and she told me, I'm very keen about my daughter going away. I said, really? My daughter was away to study, but when she came back, I was happy that she's back. She told me, I'm actually planning to follow her.
Wow.
She is my excuse. Mm-hmm. How sad. That is very sad.
It is.
I'm sure in other circumstances she would not have said that. But why would people say that? Of course, after the heat wave, after the disastrous days we had, with blackouts and problems with electricity, we're starting to realize that this is not over yet. Mm-hmm. And that the solutions to a problem like that, which may happen again, have not been even identified, let alone solved. Mm-hmm. And people all of a sudden are realizing that it's very easy to blame the Nationalist Party. Mm-hmm. But after 10 years of Labour government, people deserve better. People are now realizing, hold on, are you telling me that you've been there for 10 years and you've invested zilch in the distribution system of our country? Mm-hmm. If there was a Labour MP here with us today, probably they'll tell us, no, we invested. But since 2018, they have invested absolutely nothing.
pajjiżna jkun l-aqwa fl-Ewropa. Jien irrid issa li Malta tkun lejla tad-dinja. Għaliex mit-tiegħi għas-sasaħ se jkun l-aqwa żmien. Għall-pensjonanti se jkun l-aqwa żmien. Għall-familji se jkun l-aqwa żmien. Għan-negozji se jkun. Għall-awġin se jkun l-aqwa żmien.
I'd like to address some items that have appeared on the
Yeah.
press this week. For example, pharmacists have raised concerns about the ability to continue supplying patients with chemotherapy medication on behalf of the Malta Community Chest Fund.
Yes.
As a former shadow Minister of Health, what are your comments about this process?
First of all, how sad that in a country which is doing so well economically, and I'm being very sarcastic here, we have people begging because they have a condition, they have a sickness, they have cancer, and they need medication, and they have to go begging to the Malta Community Chest Fund. It's not making sense. Those people are entitled to medicine.
So what
They
happened?
should have-
When did the system change?
Well, I think what is happening, Leah, is that there is a huge demand on the system, on the health system in general. And whilst as a nationalist party, and I can say this because I worked in the Ministry of Health at the time, there was a lot of focus by Dr. Joe Kassar, who was the Minister of Health, on particularly oncology and the treatment of cancer. Now the numbers have exploded. Obviously, new treatments are coming out all the time. And this government has just let it all out of hand. To be honest, I haven't felt the presence of the health system. Like, where is the focus of the health system?
The shortage of medicines is having a significant impact on cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy, including those with leukemia. Individuals who spoke to Net News shared their concern about how this shortage is having a negative impact on patients' health. Most patients are being directed to contact the Ministry of Health. A leukemia patient said that her chemotherapy had to be paused because the medication was out of stock. This caused a setback in her treatment. The absence of a solution to stock adequate medication may lead patients to have a situation where their lives could be at risk. Although the shortage of specific medicines are available in neighbouring countries, the Minister of Health, Dr. Chris Fearn, has not made any comment in this regard. The list of unavailable medications no longer seems to be accessible on the Ministry of Health's website. In just 4 years, the number of patients in need of chemotherapy tripled, with 245 patients receiving assistance for chemotherapy treatment in 2018 compared to 171 in 2022. The surge has led to an expenditure increase from €8.5 million to €19 million over the span of 4 years. During the August Moon Ball last weekend, President George Vella said that the Malta Community Chest Fund continues to assist patients undergoing chemotherapy.
Okay, we know that there's going to be a new, small hospital in Paola, obviously, because it is Minister Chris Fearn's district, so that is where he chose to open a new health service, part of the primary healthcare system.
The idea is that it would service the south.
Yes, but we're still there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were going to start creating other hubs. No, that's the feeling. By the time that finishes, what is happening? What's happening in Gozo? I mean, Gozo, basically, there was this whole thing about selling the Gozo hospital, the single hospital in Gozo, and now there is a lack of service in Gozo, which is shocking, absolutely. People, going back to your question, people who have cancer in Gozo have to come to Malta for chemotherapy. Do you know that? Now, I've had my mother with cancer. She passed away 2 years ago, and I know the plight of these people. It's shocking that we have to bring people over from Gozo to to take their chemotherapy. And then, like in any other condition, when it comes to cancer, we have a lot of people who can't make use of the chemotherapy being imported by the government for some reason or another. I've mentioned this in Parliament and I will mention it again. I know people with, and others not with diabetes, but people with diabetes who have a condition in their eye who need to take injections in their eyes regularly, but the government has decided to stop importing a particular treatment, which is called Eylea. Okay? And whenever I ask a question, the minister tells me, but we are importing a parallel medicine. I know people who cannot take the parallel medication. Now, when we were in government, you could apply for a special case where the medication would be given to that patient because that patient cannot take other medication. That's not being given anymore. So now we have people losing their sight because the government, they're losing their sight. They're becoming blind because the government is not giving them this treatment. Now, the pharmacists have spoken up. This, I have to say, this has been building up.
It was reported by the Shift News earlier this week that pharmacists are expressing concerns over the supply of costly chemotherapy drugs due to delayed payments from the Malta Community Chest Fund, which supports these treatments. The report claims that pharmacists are not being reimbursed for chemotherapy medications provided to patients being referred to by the Malta Community Chest Fund, and this is causing financial difficulties on the businesses as well as disrupting the supply chain. The outstanding payments are substantial, and pharmacists say that responsibility for funding these treatments should lie with the government rather than burdening the Malta Community Chest Fund. The Health Minister, Dr. Chris Fearn, and Finance Minister Clive Caruana are believed to be discussing a solution to resolve this issue. The medications that cost between €3,500 to €6,000 per treatment are raising concerns about ongoing patient care.
When I used to shadow health, I had actually asked Marie-Louise Colero-Preca to basically meet me to discuss this. And she had pointed out that there were a lot of people going to her to support them, for help when it comes to chemotherapy. Looks like this has been growing and growing and growing, and it hasn't been addressed. Because I don't see why the Malta Community Chest Fund should be financing this when the government should be financing this. Because now it's not making sense. Now the government is going to have to fork out some 6.5 million to give to the Malta Community Chest Fund, when actually those 6.5 million should have been given anyway to the Malta Community Chest Fund to help in other areas. Because the fact that the Malta Community Chest Fund has to make good for the lack of services and medicines being offered by the health, it's basically a certification of failure.
How do you reckon that this problem can be resolved?
We have 400 million given to an entity somewhere. Some people have pocketed 400 million. Shouldn't that money go to our health system, truly to our health system?
Sure.
To the people who are begging for their medications. It's an insult to know that those 400 million are still somewhere out there and they are not where they should be, treating our people with dignity, love and respect.
Since you mentioned it, would you give us an update of what happened in the last week with regards to the stewards contract? Such a long, drawn-out process.
Well, yes. Now, as we know, we still have to wait till October, for further developments, etc. It's sad.
Multi World Healthcare huma l-ikbar operatur tal-healthcare ġewwa l-Istati Uniti. Għamilna extended due diligence fuqhom, ippreżentajna il-proposal tagħna ovvjament bħala gvern lill-kabinett u l-kabinett bħala gvern iddeċida li it was the right thing to do.
The government, Conrad Mitzi, August of last year, agreed to sign a new agreement which he kept secret, basically. We got to know about it recently. That if either court or government or whoever cancels the contract that they had and therefore cancels that because it's their fault, because they didn't do anything, basically, they would still get 100 million. So basically we, the taxpayers, the Maltese citizens, would be paying from our pockets for the failure. Very simply, I need to understand how somebody who has the power to contract on behalf of the people, on the part of government, in order to safeguard the public interest, can actually ever justify that there is no intent in deliberately misappropriating the Maltese people of 100 million in cash, are there, if there is no complicity with the people receiving them.
It-tlet sptarijiet ta' St. Luke's, Karen Grek u l-isptar ġenerali ta' Udex sejna ta' lura lill-poplu Malti u Wawċi Borni mill-qorti wara li l-imħallef Francesco De Pasquale sab li l-qorti m'għandha l-ebda dubju li Vitals Global Healthcare illum Steward Malta nataw konċessjoni b'riżultat ta' ġiru gideb intiżi sabiex jikkorrompu l-ħsieb għall-gwadan tagħhom.
Rebħet Malta, rebħet il-ġustizzja, ħarġet il-verità, hemm minna illi fil-wiċċ tal-korruzzjoni ma tista' tieqaf tiġġieled qatt u ma taqta' qalbek qatt. Din Malta tagħna, din Malta li rridu.
Basically, we had Adrian Delia having to take the whole system to court because it wasn't just an individual, you know. And then to be told, you're right. But now the remedy, we still have to wait and wait and wait. And it's just dragging. But in the meantime, as I told you, I remind people who are watching us, if you don't have the medication you needed, if you're waiting for a knee replacement or hip replacement, and there are thousands waiting for those, thousands, in huge excruciating pain, okay? The surgery is not going to happen anytime soon. I mean, I'm told that it's over 3 years now, if not more, okay? Shouldn't these people be given the help they need? That money could have gone, if at Mater Dei there is a big load, that money could have gone to the private hospitals, the Maltese private hospitals, because we already had Maltese private hospitals. We didn't need to import any, you know, clever people who actually had no experience, zero experience in the health sector, okay? The only experience one of them has was in Canada in timeshare, right? And these people got these huge sums of money. Obviously, I'm sure, not I think, I am sure that Maltese people have, especially politicians and those around them, have pocketed thousands, if not millions, but that's, you know, still to come. We still have to discover. But we want those 400 million, and we want them for the people. We want them for those cancer patients who don't have the chemotherapy they need.
How easy is it, though, to repatriate that money?
Oh, it's very complicated, very complicated.
And a very costly process, I understand.
But the government has the power to do these things. Definitely to move faster. We cannot afford to have this money out there, you know, thrown in the wind or in people's pockets. And now we have people begging to be treated decently and with dignity.
Still with a focus on medical, can you explain why Carmen Chantar returned to her position as CEO of the Foundation for Medical Services after suspending herself?
Well, it's odd. I mean, this country is going through some really odd things which are difficult to explain. I mean, you suspend yourself and then you readmit yourself because you've been cleared. But then we get all these strange messages, which Chris Fern himself during a press conference was talking, about these dark, was he talking about Joseph Muscat, not Joseph Muscat? What's going on? What's going on? We need clarity there, once again.
I mean, did you ever understand who was framed? I heard that phrase many times.
Absolutely have no idea who's who, what's what. This is a big mess, once again. And it looks like the Labour Party is imploding on itself, trying to, cut the legs of those who, might not be protecting the powers that be.
Why, in your opinion, has Dr. Chris Fern not made any comments about this as Minister of Health?
Well, perhaps we should ask him. But, the fact that things have not changed and have not moved on and have not improved tells me that things are much deeper than what we think.
In a recent development, Carmen Chantar, former aide and campaign manager to the Minister of Health, Dr. Chris Fern, has reassumed her role as CEO of the Foundation for Medical Services. This reinstatement follows her self-suspension after allegations that compromised her role in the healthcare sector 2 months ago. The issue started when a Pakistani newspaper accused Chantar of accepting a significant bribe from individuals linked to Vital's healthcare. These alleged transactions occurred during the period when the company was engaged in negotiations for hospital agreements with the Maltese government in 2015. It was alleged that a sum amounting to €443,500 had been transferred to Chantar's account from Gozo International Medicare Limited, held at Emirates NBD Bank in Dubai. Carmen Chantar denied any wrongdoing and underscored that she had not been employed by the Foundation for Medical Services at the time in question. Chantar chose to temporarily suspend her position as CEO in order to fully cooperate with authorities and ensure a thorough and transparent investigation took place. Subsequently, another accusation surfaced on a blog in Ukraine, implicating Chantar's daughter in a transaction involving a wealthy Russian individual who had allegedly acquired a passport with the assistance of the health minister, Dr. Chris Fern. Chantar displayed unwavering determination to clear her reputation.
I'd like to refer to the editorial in the Times of Malta of Friday last week, and it related to the role of the Attorney General, and I quote, "There have been too many instances when she," referring to Victoria Buttigieg, "appeared weak at the knees. Incompetence and submission can never be acceptable in a person running one of the most sensitive offices in the country." What are your comments about that?
In a normal country, if one of the leading newspapers wrote that about the Attorney General of that country, that Attorney General would seriously consider resigning.
But we never hear any comments from her.
Well, yes, sadly, but there is clear evidence that she has not been doing what she is supposed to be doing. And she's also done things which she's not supposed to have done. Information related to the Jean-Paul Sophia case, for instance. But it's not now. This has been happening over and over and over again. And I think, honestly, I don't see why people have to wait to be told something like this. If you can't say no to someone when legally and when your role actually demands that you do, then you're not fit for the job.
The Attorney General, Dr. Victoria Buttigieg, has also recently been criticized by the family of the late Dr. Mario Rizzonaudi, who tragically lost his life on 1st April under mysterious circumstances while he was receiving medical care at Mater Dei Hospital. The families say that 4 months after the tragedy, they still do not know exactly what happened. In a Facebook post, Doriette Rizzonaudi said that Attorney General Victoria Buttigieg did not communicate with any of the relatives of Dr. Mario Rizzonaudi in order to inform them of the conclusions of the magisterial inquiry. Doriette Rizzonaudi said that the family have a right to know why Dr. Rizzonaudi died. It is a question that remains unanswered. She would like to know why the cause of his mysterious death is not being revealed. It is alleged that Dr. Mario Rizzonaudi fell from the hospital bed and that on-duty staff were not aware of what happened. Unfortunately, doctors were unable to save his life, and Dr. Rizzonaudi passed away as he was unable to endure any further interventions. Doriette Rizzonaudi said that the family are in limbo. They have appealed to the higher institutions to provide clarity and answer their questions. Mrs. Rizzonaudi is asking for justice and closure for the family. The entire story goes back to Saturday, 25th of March, when Doriette Rizzonaudi found her husband lying in a pool of blood at home after he fell down the stairs in the garage of the family home. He was then rushed by ambulance to the neurosurgical ward in Mater Dei, where he was certified to have suffered from head injuries. Sources speaking to Net News explained that while he was being treated at Mater Dei Hospital, he was put under a 24-hour one-to-one observation due to potential complications. However, after 5 days he was discharged from the hospital and was said to be relaxed and in a stable condition. Nevertheless, Dr. Rizzonaudi had to be readmitted just after a day. His relatives are now uncertain whether he received the necessary attention as ordered by his doctors. Just 2 hours after he was readmitted, hospital staff urgently called the family. After the tragedy and mysterious circumstances, and after more than 4 months, the relatives of Dr. Rizzonaudi still do not know what led to his fall from the hospital bed, and more importantly, who was responsible for all this. 4 months on, the family find it difficult to understand why the Attorney General has not seen the need to advise them of the conclusions of the magisterial inquiry. The family continue to put pressure on the Attorney General to advise them on the findings of this inquiry.
If I recall, when she took up this role, there was a lot of hope in what she could bring to this role.
Well, I can say that of many people in this country. You know, one police commissioner after the other, we kept hoping for a better one and a better one and a better one and a better one. But honestly, you know, I mean, the fact that as opposition, we found ourselves during the past 10 years, multiple times, having to tell people what to do, when it's their job, when it's their duty, when it's their role. You know, the police commissioner, the Attorney General, you know, just to mention a few. And you can't go on like this. As I said, we are a European country. In a normal European country, in a Western country like ours, you would not think of doing what these people are doing or not doing, you know. They're basically running away from their responsibilities. Of course, they're all getting their wages, which are obviously there because of their responsibility, okay? But now people are saying, hold on, what about us? This is what people are saying. If you ask people, who is the Attorney General? A lot of them wouldn't even know, because she's diminished her role so much. I know that the Prime Minister is a bully. I've been bullied by him in Parliament several times. you know, being a woman and, you know, all these snide remarks he passes. But I just stand up and answer back. You know, I will not cower down to a bully, absolutely not. And I've told him this in his face. But, you know, if you're working in that role and you're being bullied into doing things you don't want to do, then you should leave. If, on the other hand, you're comfortable doing what you're doing, then you shouldn't be there. So, I don't think she has many options.
What are your comments about the Prime Minister's comments a few weeks ago when he U-turned about Jean-Paul Sofia? Do you believe that our justice system was being jeopardized?
Look, I think that is one of the biggest messes and U-turns Robert Abela has done. I was in Parliament when the family of Jean-Paul Sofia stormed out in anger. And I could see colleagues from the other side sitting behind the Prime Minister. Some of them actually chose not to sit behind him, and they sat in different places. I could see that there was anger and there was disappointment.
Prim Ministru inti spiċċajt iżolat waħdek, ivvutajt kontra l-istidin l-inkjesta pubblika, possibbli m'għandekx kummenti xtati?
Grazzi.
Idejkom bid-dem! Għatħalles, għatħal inti!
Rajtu? Mor il-qoddis! Ersqu għal-ġem! Xedni tolbu, koma! Flus!
Saba xew li ma norqotin, saba xew. Għatħol il-ka soċjali, Michael! Il-ġabbana ta' minni, Michael, ta' sigla!
When the decision was reversed, I immediately reached out to some of them, and the anger was 10 times as much, or not more. Because now they've been ridiculed, they've been humiliated. Some of them actually stuck their neck out for Robert Abela's position. And then after all that, you know, it's reversed, it's changed. It's out of convenience. He realized, you know, I mean, he tried till the very, very last minute to dilute the crowd in front of Castile, but didn't manage because he miscalculated completely insensitive to what it means to lose your son.
Shame on you! 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 Shame on you!
To what it means to be put in that situation where nobody can tell you what really happened. So all of a sudden, he saw the crowd, this is not going to be popular, you know, probably thought, you know, it's going to be like the beheading of Marie Antoinette or something, and thought, I better change my position here, you know. So, yes, and then you get this playing with words as to what happened and didn't happen. Frankly, I don't even need to go into the detail of it. Frankly, what is out there? Robert Abela, he didn't just take a decision to vote against the Jean-Paul Sofia motion, which we presented as opposition. He actually did it physically. I remember clearly in Parliament, he just banged on the table and said, "Le." You know, so then he had to, you know, swallow all he had said before.
Thank you very much for being so thorough. I want to, before we close today, speak about the EU elections, which will be with us in a few months.
Yes.
What would you say to people who may not exercise the right to vote?
Look, the EU elections and the local councils elections have very often been used to send a message. to people. But I think this time round, people are beginning to see that something needs to happen. So I think, you know, not choosing a party is obviously their choice, fine. But I think we need a stronger message than that. And I think that with the European Parliament elections in particular, I think we've proven over and over and over again that, you know, the Nationalist Party are the party of the European Union. We deserve, we worked hard for it. We've paid a big price. We should not be the minority party in the European Parliament elections. But this time round, I think that there are people to choose. You know, there are people who have, I mean, our two representatives have done a wonderful job. Both Roberta has excelled beyond imagination, and David has been a huge supporter for Roberta, but also has worked very, very, very hard in areas which deserve support, even him on his own.
He's very solid. He's very solid and consistent.
And he's worked very hard, and he's a good friend. Of course, we have candidates, and I'm sure that we're going to have others, but we have new candidates who also deserve to be there, you know? Candidates who are new to the European Parliament, young candidates, you know, people have been working for a long time in the European organizations themselves. But I think that we have a lot to offer. Now, apart from that, there is the local councils. And I think even there, people need to send a message. You cannot let the Labour Party get away with this. I mean, they've really ruined, I was about to say something really rude, but they've ruined this country. And it's time that they get a, you know, a stop, we've had enough message, you know, and that comes from a vote. Okay, some people may tell you not voting is still a message, but where's that going to put us? Let's, you know, come forward, talk to us. I get a lot of people who talk to me on this level, you know, and my message is always the same. Choose the people who you think can make it for you, can be your representatives, okay? But choose, choose.
What about foreigners? They can actually vote.
Yes, they can.
For the next election.
Yes, those who are obviously on the register. So that once again will be a thorough exercise which the Nationalist Party has already started working on, and you know, we need to be very careful as to who these people are voting. But yes, they do have a vote, and once again, you know, it really depends on who the people are and their background, what they're doing, because you know, not everybody who is in our country is with the same perspective, to put it that way. But yes, we have a lot of people with votes, and a lot of work is being done to reach out to them as well.
Thank you very much, Claudette.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you for the time.